What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? What's up, Twitch? It's Zero here. Today, guys, I'm bringing all of you a brand new episode of the Gears Cast. Welcome, everyone, to the Gears Cast, the best Gears of War podcast here on YouTube. If you're watching this live on Twitch, the best Gears of War podcast on Twitch. And I'm super excited about our episode here today. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. What's happening? Excited to be here. Thank you so much for all the new followers, all the new subscribers. Reaper, thank you for the follow. Appreciate you in a massive way. Jack, thank you for the follow as well. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. We have surpassed 2.6K here on Twitch. Absolutely awesome. We are approaching 6,000 subscribers on YouTube. So it's all because of you guys. I appreciate each and every one of you who are coming to obviously watching the content on YouTube, subscribing, liking the content, following it, watching it live on Twitch. I appreciate each and every one of you. We have a massive show here today, guys. A lot of things that we're going to be talking about in the Gears of War universe, things that have been kind of transpiring, over the last, week or so since we did the last Gears Cast. And there's just a lot of things that I definitely want to talk about with all of you here on this episode of the show. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start, guys, talking about the title of this episode of the Gears Cast, that being, Gears of War 6 and everything that we know so far about this thing. So I want to talk about that here in particular as we start the show today. Let's talk about this. So guys, I'm going to be talking about specifically, Gears 6, like all of the things that we know so far about this title, Gears of War 6, which is what I wanted to be titled first and foremost. Obviously, the speculation and the rumblings are that it's going to be called, the official title of Gears of War 6 is going to be Gears 6. But that being said, let's talk about Gear 6, shall we? And about everything that we know so far about this title. So, guys, I'm going to be pulling some thoughts and an article that is coming to us from Rami Tabari of Laptop Mag. Here's everything that we know about Gear 6 at this point in time. So, Gears 6 is not officially confirmed yet, but Gears 5 was one of the most successful games for Xbox, so there's bound to be a sequel. However, there isn't a lot of information out there about Gears 6, so things like gameplay, plot, and modes are unknown. And the first thing, before I even, continue moving forward here with this article, is I think it's important that, we hear Gears 5 was one of the most successful games for Xbox. So it just makes sense that Gear 6 has already been confirmed. I mean, now Rod Ferguson, we've talked about this a lot, guys, but Rod Ferguson, the studio head at the Coalition at the time, had mentioned that Gear 6, Gear 7, as well as the Gears of War movie, which we're going to be talking about here on this episode of the Gears Cast, were all confirmed by him. Now, this is before he left, obviously. He left the Coalition to go to Activision Blizzard to work on the new Diablo title. But it only makes sense. I mean, Gears 5 was a very successful title. I look at it from the perspective that Gears 5 was successful for Xbox, but it wasn't a smash success in terms of like what the community thought of it. Even though I loved Gears 5 for what it was, I still love Gears 5 to this day. It was not as well received by fans and such. And I'm not going to say that it was, any one particular thing. Not that it was Gears 5 instead of Gears of War 5 or, that it was kind of a brighter type of Gears of War title, wasn't as gritty and dark as some of, its predecessors or, some of the games that came before it. But it was a smash hit for Xbox and for Xbox Game Pass. It was really like, if I recall, it was one of like the first party exclusives that came out on Xbox Game Pass, I believe. And it did very well in terms of that. So Gears 5 left us with one cliffhanger, and fans are anticipating a sequel that will wrap up the second trilogy with an epic finale. While we don't know many specifics, we have a few ideas about where the story is going. The biggest question is, which ending is the Coalition going to stick with? So Obviously, guys, they're talking about an epic finale or an epic ending to this current trilogy, and it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of people and a lot of speculation that Gears 6 is going to be the last Gears of War title ever made, and that is an interesting concept. I definitely hope it's not the last one ever made. However, I look at a title like Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite comes out, and I'm sure they're planning on making other future entries in the Halo universe. But that being said, I don't think that they're planning on making another Halo title for a long time. And maybe Halo Infinite was actually meant to be, kind of its own thing for the foreseeable future. Like, it wasn't going to, like, maybe they thought to themselves, let's make this Halo the final Halo, and we support it for the long term with DLC and updates, and we support it for the long term. I'm wondering if something similar here may happen with Gears 6, even though Gears 7 was confirmed by Rod Ferguson. It would be really interesting. So that being said, guys, let's talk about the release date. So this is the huge one that people are asking: when is Gears 6 going to be hitting shelves for us to play, or when is it going to go live on Xbox Game Pass, so on and so forth. So obviously, surprise, we have no clue when Gears 6 is going to launch, but we do have some insight on the timeline thanks to the previous titles. There was a 3-year wait between Gears of War 4 and Gears 5, so logic says Gears 6 should release sometime in 2022. However, the developers say something different. On May 10th, 2021, the Coalition wrote in a blog post that it would be switching over to Unreal Engine 5, and shifting to a new engine is a big undertaking, so we want to be clear that we will not be announcing any new projects or titles for some time. That likely means we won't see Gear 6 until 2023 to 2025, depending how long it takes to build things from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5. And considering how long that'll take, it'll likely only be available for Xbox Series X, S, and PC, leaving out last-gen consoles. So, interestingly enough, I think this is something that we definitely, want to talk about, because I've said that the timeline in my mind was, and I'm going to stick with it, guys, being 2024 or 2025 for Gears 6. And the reason being is because so much rumors and speculation around the Gears of War collection is out there. And so I think that the Gears of War collection, if it exists, if it's something that's being worked on behind the scenes, I believe that is the title that's going to come out in 2023. I thought it was going to come out this year here in 2022. Obviously, that's not the case. If it's coming out at all, I believe it's going to come out in 2023. That's going to bridge the gap between Gears 5 to Gears 6. It's going to be kind of that bridge title. And then we'll get Gears 5 in 2024 or 2025. I would love to see Gears 6 come out in 2023, but I definitely want the Coalition to take their time, do this thing right, make sure that it's going to be something that is sustainable, but something that the community and the pro players, all of those things, everyone universally loves the Gear 6. And so if that means Coalition taking a lot of time, I'm totally down for that without question. That being said, in a supposed leak via cache files in NVIDIA GeForce Now, Gears of War 6 was found as a listing of over 18,000. Other unreleased titles in this list were Final Fantasy IX Remake, Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster, and Half-Life 2 Remastered. It's probably best to take this with a bit of skepticism, which I 100% agree. In terms of on the Microsoft website, a recent job listing reveals that the Coalition are aiming to hire a motion capture technician to work with the Gears franchise. And so, obviously, we've talked about this, guys. The Coalition are getting, obviously going through the, obviously the steps now with motion capture. Obviously, they're not going to be doing motion capture for the Gears of War collection, because Gears of War collection is going to be more of a remaster than anything else. So you're not going to need motion capture for that. So they're definitely ramping up for the, the future Gears of War, that being Gears 6 or whatever the next Gears of War title is called. I'm hoping it's Gears of War 6 or, Gears of War Forever or whatever you want to call it, right? But that being said, motion capture would only make sense for the next continuation or a new title altogether. As in terms of the story, guys, this is an interesting one. We all know where the story is heading after that super traumatic ending. No matter which decision is canon to the overarching story, Kate Diaz and Marcus Phoenix are going to be out for blood. The finale will likely entail a battle between Kate Diaz and her mother, Reyna Diaz, aka Queen of the Swarm. And this is interesting. Obviously, the thing that I would like to see happen, even though we know kind of where the story's headed, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for the Coalition to create some wow moments and some moments that we're not expecting whatsoever. And that would be something like Kate Diaz goes after, Reyna, her mother, and takes her down. But in the process of that happening, she actually becomes the Swarm Queen. And then it's like this massive plot twist. And we're actually, the past couple of games have been playing as the future of the Locust Horde, the next queen of the Swarm. And then maybe in Gear 7, you have Marcus Phoenix, JD, they all go after to take down Kate Diaz as well as the rest of the Locust Horde once and for all. I feel that, Kate Diaz is a very powerful character in terms of, I love her character as it is, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity because I believed her to be like a really powerful character in a number of ways. I think that her becoming the Swarm Queen could really up the stakes and make it, something during, Gear 7 that she's like the biggest threat that the world has ever seen at this point in time. And so it could be something really interesting for Gear 7. I don't know what direction they're planning on going in. However, it sounds like they're probably just going to go in the direction of Kate Diaz. We play as her to go take down the Swarm Queen, that being her mother, Reyna. And then that's maybe the end of it, right? But I feel like there's just so much more to be told in the Gears of War universe as a whole, whether we're talking comic books, novels, movies, the games, of course. I just think there's so much more to be said than it just kind of ending in that way. That's just my opinion. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about that in the comment section down below. But how is the Coalition going to handle that important choice at the end of Gears 5? Will the writing team definitively decide a canon ending, or will Gears 6 feature two completely different instances of storytelling? This has been done before in games like Wolfenstein and even in bigger games like The Witcher 3. So this is an interesting point. We've talked about this on the YouTube channel, guys. By the way, you guys can check out all of my Gears of War content here on the channel. And I will say this. Gears 5's ending, even though I loved like the decisions that you have to make, some massive decisions you have to make, whether killing off JD or Del, I didn't like us having to choose between Del and JD, simply because, now the question really comes up as what's canon. JD, I did not like the direction that the Coalition took JD in. I've been very vocal about this in Gears 5. Gears of War 4, we play as JD, and then it moves right over to Kate Diaz. I feel like it did JD somewhat of a disservice. They kind of made JD seem more of like a douchebag than anything in Gears 5, and so I just didn't like where they took JD's character. That being said, the canon here, or in terms of what will be canon in Gears 6, I'm wondering if they're going to, whatever your decision was in Gears 5, that's going to translate over to Gears 6. And so if you have JD live, right, the story will take you in one direction in Gear 6. If you chose to save Del, the story in Gear 6 will go a different direction. It'll be interesting to see what they plan on doing. I think that, it really sounded like the Coalition was going to double down on this idea of creating more options and choices that you make in Gear 6. Like they wanted to tease it in Gears 5, and then in Gear 6, they're going to really go full blown into that. The same thing goes with teasing the semi-open world in Gears 5. I feel like the direction they're going in is a full open world in Gear 6. So with the choices that you make, obviously we've made choices throughout every single Gears of War title at this point. Obviously, it's usually which path do you want to go down? And that's usually what it is. But now they're upping the stakes of it, and I think they're going to just continue doubling down on that in Gear 6. We'll have to kind of wait and see without question. Now, considering Kate Diaz's origins, there's also a chance that the ever-evolving Swarm could survive past Gear 6, depending on the direction the writers decide to go. Either way, Kate Diaz will have to face her past and come to terms with her connection to Locust and the Swarm. 100% agree. As far as the gameplay goes, guys, we don't know anything about what Gears 6 gameplay will be like, but hopefully it changes. Don't get me wrong, I love Gears 5, but the gameplay wasn't as impressive as it could have been. It felt like a traditional Gears game, and not in a good way. With the transition to Unreal Engine 5, I hope the Coalition goes radical with Gears 6 and spices up the gameplay by nailing down the movement and make it smoother. Getting more creative with the cover-based mechanics and stealth mechanics would also drive the series forward in a big way. Look, I loved Gears 5, so I disagree with this notion that, there has to be massive changes. I think, yes, there has to, going from Gears 5 to Gears 6, there has to be change, right? You have to evolve, you have to adapt the franchise. So the movement system, making it smoother, yeah, sure. I mean, you can always make it better. And obviously Unreal Engine 5 I think is going to create a lot of opportunity for things to become smoother for sure. Like I said, though, I loved Gears 5. And, I thought that the gameplay was fine for what it was. Could it have been better? Absolutely. There's always things that, development teams and such can improve on. And I do hope that they improve in Gear 6. They continue to evolve and adapt. One of the things, it definitely didn't feel as much like other Gears of War titles. I think there was definitely mechanics that they had changed, right? And we were talked about, like, Gears 5 maybe wasn't quite as gritty as maybe Gears of War 3, Gears of War 2, or the original Gears title, or even Gears of War 4. It wasn't quite as gritty. I want Gears 6 to go a little bit grittier, a little bit darker, and I think that's what, Gears of War is all about. Now, that being said, I also feel that for the esports scene in particular, I think it's important that they deal with that very carefully to make it so that more and more people can watch Gears esports, like, a younger audience and such. Gears of War is going to be a mature rating, regardless of how you look at it, guys. But certain ways you could maybe create some, make it a little bit more, not so much kid friendly, but making it so that it's not as graphic in terms of the esports scene and such. But like I said, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about that. I do agree, though, that the Coalition needs to continue to update things, and I think that they definitely will. That's why they're taking their time doing this thing right. The studio should look to games like Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain for inspiration. MGS 5 is a super smooth cover-based shooter disguised as a stealth game. The game can't just look next-gen, but it needs to feel like it's next-gen. As far as the main campaign goes, I hope that Gears 6 utilizes the same open-world RPG-esque mechanics that Gears 5 did. It was one of the best radical changes that the series has ever seen, and the Coalition needs to keep those changes to bring Gears franchise back to the top. I mean, I don't think that you have to make an open world game in order to make it rise back to the top. You just have to make a really solid entry, make sure the launch is really good. Like if we could take Gear 6, have the launch that we had with Halo Infinite, like Halo Infinite had an awesome launch. If we could get that with Gear 6, we would already be off to the races. Obviously, I think from a content perspective, we have to be creating content, guys. We have to be streaming. We have to be doing all those things to help build this thing. Yes, open world is definitely going to help, for sure. I would love to see stuff like, Halo Infinite. One of the things that people want so badly is Forge mode, like where they can create their own maps and such. I think this would be awesome for Gears of War. Gears of War having a Forge mode or something like it, where there's a map editor where we can create our own maps, really open up the imagination, and maybe, I think that would be something that would be awesome. It's like, Coalition, let the community help you guys in terms of making some of these things, taking kind of a load off your plate. The same thing goes with, weapon skins and such. I think getting the community involved in things like that could be something absolutely awesome. And then the same thing goes with the esports teams, allowing the esports teams to create their own skins and such. And I don't know exactly if they allow them to or not, but doing stuff like that could be something absolutely massive for Gears 6, getting the community more and more involved, making it a little bit easier. Like I said, lessening the load on the Coalition, I think could be absolutely huge. Now, as far as the outlook goes, guys, I love the Gears of War franchise, and while I started to lose interest when Gears of War 4 launched, Gears 5 resparked my joy in the series. Gears 5 was such a step forward for the franchise that I am giddy thinking about what Gears 6 will be like. It's going to be a few years since the Coalition is moving forward, or is officially moving to a new engine, but the wait will be worth it when we see one of the biggest titles launch on the upgraded Unreal Engine 5. We really want to see some major changes to the gameplay formula, tweaks that could keep this cover-based shooter feeling fresh in the 2020s. So look, guys, I definitely think that you have to continue having, changes. And I think that there was a number of things actually, that made Gears of War 4 better than Gears 5 in terms of tone, in terms of grittiness, things of that nature. And so I think, even though I loved Gears 5, not everyone loved Gears 5, right? And I think that all video games are subjective. What one person thinks is great, another person may not think is that great. So, it's interesting to say the least, and I'm definitely interested to see what happens here in the future. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about Gears of War 6, Gears 6. With all the things that we know, at least so far about this title, even though we know very little, what are your guys' thoughts about it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Gears 6 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. I want to talk in this next segment of the show. And by the way, thank you for all the new followers, all the new subscribers. You guys are absolutely crushing it, and I appreciate each and every one of you. So let's talk about, one of the things I think that is going to be awesome about Gears 6, and I'm just going to say it here because I think that it's really important that we talk about this in terms of Gears 6 being what I believe could very well be the best Gears of War title ever made. I want to talk about this because I believe that Gears 6 has the opportunity and the potential to be the greatest ever made, and certainly the best made by the Coalition ever. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Gears of War 6 in terms of how this could be the best Gears of War title to date, the greatest Gears of War game ever made. Let's talk about some things that could definitely echo that into existence. So number one, obviously the Coalition is taking their time and they're doing it right? And Jez Gordon said this perfectly. I truly believe, guys, that we are in a period of time where the Coalition they're taking their time with this next up and coming Gears of War title, regardless of what it's called and all of that, whether it's Gears of War 6, Gears 6, or something totally different altogether. They're taking their time with this next entry in the Gears of War universe. Typically, it's every 3 years we get a new Gears of War title. But obviously that timeline is changing, and it could change in a pretty big way. We may see Gears 6 or Gears of War 6 not come out until 2024, 2025. I mean, maybe 2023, but I think it's more likely 2024, 2025. And so with that, I think it creates like a really interesting narrative around just Gears of War in general, because we've never really had to wait this long for a new title. At least, of course, in the Coalition's era of making Gears of War titles, we've never had to wait this long. And so why that gets me very excited is because if they're taking this much time on the next entry in Gears of War, they realize that there were some things that went awry in Gears 5 and even in Gears of War 4. And so they want to take their time and make sure that this next up-and-coming title is something really special. So that gets me very excited, first and foremost, for Gears of War 6. The Coalition are going to take their time. They're going to do this thing right, in my mind, for sure. Number two, why Gears 6 could definitely be the best Gears of War title ever made is because the Coalition is switching from, obviously, the old Unreal Engine to Unreal Engine 5. And what that's going to do, obviously, is going to make Gears 6 look absolutely gorgeous. Now, Gears 5 looked great, in my opinion. I thought it looked fantastic. I mean, Gears 5 was the best looking Gears of War title we've ever had. I thought from a graphical perspective, it looked incredible. The landscapes, the semi-open world, all those things made Gears 5 absolutely slap. I mean, it looked great from a visual perspective. Gears of War 6, I believe, is going to look even better than Gears 5, for sure. I mean, simply because we're getting it on Unreal Engine 5. Unreal Engine 5, and obviously the Coalition showed us a tech demo of, Unreal Engine 5 and some models and concepts that they're working on. It even looked like they were showing us a little bit, what could be a little snippet of some Gears 6 concepts in that demo. And when I saw that, it looks visually stunning. And obviously, I believe they're just models and such. I mean, they're definitely, they're ramping up production. And so I think that Unreal Engine 5 is going to make Gears 6 look unbelievable. So they've got a massive opportunity. Obviously, moving into Unreal Engine 5, that's going to be something that could be very special. This extra amount of time is also going to get the buzz and the excitement when we get an announcement for Gears 6. It's going to give extra time for the Gears of War community to get very, very excited and really start anticipating Gears 6. And so that could be another thing that really builds momentum moving into Gears 6. So like what I'm getting at here, obviously from Halo 5 to Halo Infinite, the Halo, community had to wait a while. They had to wait a while for Halo Infinite, but the hype started building and it kept building. And when Halo Infinite came out, the launch was a smash success in any way that you could really look at it. It was a massive success. And obviously now Halo Infinite's having some issues, primarily in the HCS, which is the Halo Championship Series, the Halo esports scene. They're having some issues in terms of just getting, having tournaments lined up for the pro players and, so on and so forth. So they really didn't have a great plan, it feels like, at least in this point, for the HCS. And certainly Halo has its issues. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And obviously a lot of people are waiting for the Halo BR, the Battle Royale. A lot of people are waiting for Halo's Forge mode, so on and so forth. This extra time that the Coalition is taking for Gears 6, could they be working on a Gears of War Battle Royale? Could they be working on our own map editor, kind of like Forge mode in Halo? Could they be working on some of these things, learning from the mistakes of Halo, another Xbox exclusive, and implementing a lot of those things that were negatives and turning them into positives in Gears 6? I think that is something that could absolutely be happening right here, right now, guys. Now, obviously, we're going to have to wait and see. But this is why I'm kind of setting a stage here of why Gears 6 could become the greatest Gears of War title ever made for a lot of those reasons. And there's a number of other reasons, guys. I mean, think of it from the story's perspective, okay? We're not, forget about the full open world, which I believe we're going to get a full open world in Gears 6. We had the semi-open world tease in Gears 5. I think we're going to get a full open world in Gears 6, which is going to really expand upon the lore, the legacy of this thing. But let's think about it from the narrative of the storytelling in Gears 6, or I should say Gears 5 to Gears 6. What's canon? Is JD alive? Is Del alive? What's going to happen there? Is the choice that you make going to affect, what happens in Gears 6? The narratives around this thing, what's going to happen? Is Gears 6 going to be the end of this trilogy and lead us into the next trilogy? Or is Gears 6 meant to be kind of like a Gears Infinite or a Gears Forever, kind of like a last hurrah for the Gears universe? I believe that there's still so many more things left for Gears of War to, from the movie. The movie's going to be coming out. We're going to be talking about that here shortly on the show. Rod Ferguson confirmed Gears 6 as well as Gears 7 before he moved on to obviously Activision Blizzard. So there's a lot of excitement around what could be happening with Gears 6. A lot of it comes down to us, though, obviously. I mean, I think that the Coalition has to make a sustainable title, but we as the community have to do our part in order to really sustain it. But I think that things are lining up, guys, that this could very well be the greatest, if not the best that the Coalition has ever done in the Coalition era of making Gears titles. It could very well be the best. I have a lot of hope and thought that it's going to be the best, for sure. But it could it be the greatest Gears game ever made? I mean, it's got a ton of living up to do, because when we think about the greatest Gears titles ever, my favorite Gears of War game of all time, and my favorite game of all time, is Gears of War 3. Loved Gears of War 3. Gears of War 2, I believe, was the second greatest Gears game ever made. So when you're looking at Gears 3 and Gears 2, I mean, whichever one you want to consider 1 and 2, right? I think that those two titles are the standard for Gears of War. So if you could build on that magic of what those two games really did, and we could bring that into the 2020s now, I think the sky's the limit for Gears 6. So those are the reasons, guys, why I believe Gears of War 6 could be the greatest Gears game ever made. There's a lot of narrative. There's a lot of things going around, and we have to be the ones in the community building a lot of these narratives, building a lot of this excitement that's happening behind the scenes. Even though there's a lot of times, a lot of people are looking at it from a negative way where, Gears 5 isn't being supported anymore. The Gears esports scene is no longer, at least for the foreseeable future. I truly believe that if we continue to just, spread positivity and not negativity, we continue to create content, stream, things of that nature, we can definitely build enough hype around the future of Gears of War. And I think that there's so much to be excited about, guys. I can't wait for more information to come out about Gears 6. It's going to be a little while, so we got a journey ahead of us. But don't give up hope, guys. I think what happens on the other side is going to be something very, very special. But what do you guys think? Do you think that Gears 6 could be the greatest Gears of War title ever? Do you think it won't be? Do you think it's not going to live up to the hype? What do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Gears 6 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. Let's talk about everything that we know about the Gears of War movie and some of the updates that have come out about the Gears movie as well. And guys, by the way, I'm going to be pulling some of these references from Comic Book Gaming, as well as the Gears of War IMDb page, just for reference here. This is coming to us, guys, from Logan Moore of Comic Book Gaming. So, one of the producers behind the long-awaited movie adaptation of Gears of War has provided a new update on the project's status. For the better part of the past 15 years, a film version of Gears of War has been in development in some capacity. Although work on the movie has never gotten far enough along to actually attach a big-name actor to the project. It sounds like we could hear more about the film's current status before too long. In a new conversation with the Digital Fix, Dylan Clark, who was one of the producers of the Gears of War movie, was asked if he could share anything about its development. Although Clark, who was busy promoting the Batman, declined to say anything about Gears of War, he did express that news of some sort could be emerging before long. I'm glad that you're interested in it, Clark said. It's something that's been a passion of mine for a very long time. I think very soon there will be an announcement, which is huge, guys. I've been very excited about this. And part of the reason why I'm excited about it, and I mean, obviously, movies that are, or games that are adapted into movies usually don't do very good. I mean, the best one that I can think of more recently was Mortal Kombat. I thought Mortal Kombat was awesome. Some people didn't like it, but I thought it was great. But usually, when you have a video game franchise that's adapted into a movie, it's usually not very good. I mean, think of Max Payne, think of Assassin's Creed. I mean, there was so many opportunities for these movies to be great, but there's such an emphasis on trying to be kind of like the games, and I feel like the filmmakers that they get to make these adaptations are usually not very good, and that's why I'm a little bit concerned about the Gears of War movie. However, I do believe that if you make the Gears of War movie pretty good, even if it's a decent movie, not even a great movie, just a decent one, it's going to put more spotlight on the Gears of War franchise, which is going to help the games. So this is only going to be helping, guys, overall. It could be, if it doesn't do well, then it could be a problem, right? It may not, it just puts another negative taste in a lot of people's mouths about the Gears of War franchise. That being said, though, Over the past few years, perhaps the most notable headlines that have involved the Gears of War movie have centered around actor and former wrestler Dave Bautista. For a long period of time, Bautista has been voicing that he wants to play Gears of War protagonist Marcus Phoenix in a potential movie based on the video game. In fact, Gears 5 developer The Coalition ended up putting Bautista within the latest Gears of War game, in part because of his ongoing campaign to play Phoenix. Whether or not Bautista will actually be involved with the Gears of War movie, if it does see the light of day, remains to be seen, but he's certainly one name that many fans would love to see attached to the film. So, look, here's the thing. I mean, we don't know, guys, like when this title's going to get announced. I mean, obviously, we're hearing, from Dylan Clark saying that, we could be getting an announcement soon. And so when I hear that we could be getting an announcement soon, I'm hoping it's going to be this year, that being in 2022, right? Just kind of get it out there. Let us know, like, is this something that is something that is going to be happening here? Now, if we go to the official Gears of War IMDb page for the movie, it has here, on the planet, Sarah, a former POW, is civilization's best hope in their fight against the Locust Horde, a race of creatures who emerge from underneath the planet's surface, intent on eliminating humankind. And so, yes, guys, it's interesting. Stuart Beattie is doing, apparently he's, doing the script. F. Scott Fraser, he's also doing the screenplay. Chris Morgan. You got executive producer Cliff Bleszinski, who's a part of this thing. Dylan Clark's a producer. Obviously, guys, this is something that's being talked about, right? More and more and more. Now, is it something that is happening right this second? I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, because there's not a lot of information about it, and there's not even like a director attached to it. It's just kind of in a limbo state. It says it's in development, but I'm almost wondering if it's not even in the works of going through. I mean, it's probably in like a pre-production phase. I don't even think that it's actually in production right now. Like, I mean, it's probably they're working on the script. They're working on a number of things. It's interesting. This has been something that's been being worked on for a very long time. And usually that's not a good sign, because when they finally get around to it, it can sometimes be very chaotic. In terms of, from a filmmaking perspective. I went to film school, guys, and I just know that when things are in a limbo state like this, it's usually not a good thing. I mean, obviously, I think that you've got to have the right director, you've got to have the right script, you've got to have the right actors and such. Dave Bautista, I think, would be great just because he brings an audience, for sure. That's number one. And I think that he would play a good Marcus Phoenix, for sure. I don't think he'd be as perfect of a fit as like Max Payne was for Mark Wahlberg. I thought Mark Wahlberg playing as Max Payne was awesome, even though I thought the movie was terrible. I think you've got to find the right actors for the right roles, and the right director to really, direct this thing and really move it in the right direction. Having Cliffy B as one of the executives, I think is a good thing overall. I would love to see like Rod Ferguson be involved in some way, shape, or form. I would love to see a big name director work on the Gears of War title. It would be very interesting to me to see where they go with that. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I'm excited about the Gears of War movie, but we still don't know when it's coming. We know very little about it at this point. We know that it's in development currently, but does that mean they're actually, I don't believe they're on set. I don't even believe that they have. I mean, because a lot of these things would be updated on IMDb's page. They would have like who the main actor is that's playing as Marcus Phoenix. They'd have a director. They'd have those things most likely if it was in a pre-production phase at this point, or it was, actively in development. So, I'm going to keep you guys posted as more information comes out about the Gears of War movie, but right now, we don't know much. What do you guys think though? What are you excited about with the Gears of War movie? What would you guys like to see in terms of that? Would you prefer to have a Gears of War movie or a Gears of War show, kind of like what we got out of Halo? That would be something interesting. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about that. I personally think I'd like to see a movie more so than a show. A show could be fine, but I think if they really did well with a Gears of War movie, who knows? Maybe it would greenlight a show. That would be something really interesting. But what do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Gears of War movie content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. Shadows, who is obviously one of, kind of the standard of content creation in the Gears of War space, absolutely does a great job when it comes to streaming, does a great job when it comes to content creation on YouTube. I definitely wanted to put this out there. On his Twitter account and on his YouTube, he put out there, guys, the Gears of War Universe series is live. 56 videos in 4K 60 frames per second. This series is a complete cinematic recap of the entire Gears of War story so far for every character in the correct timeline order over the last 16 years exclusively on my channel. And I'll tell you guys, I've been watching them, kind of one at a time, and it's really well put together. I love this. I love that this exists for Gears of War fans, just for the Gears of War universe as a whole. I think this is massive. You guys should definitely check this out, guys, because like I said, I can tell that a ton of time and effort was put into this thing. And Shadows is a massive Gears of War fan, and he's a real one of the big reasons why this thing is being pushed forward, that being just Gears of War in general, is because of people like him that are creating content like this. It's definitely time consuming content and things of that nature, so I definitely want you guys to check that all out as well. Also, in the Gears of War universe, we got something interesting that came out from the Coalition. They participated, guys, at G4C, which is the Games for Change Festival. They were part of that. Christy Ray, director of production, was talking in the university and industry shared responsibility in investing in marginalized communities. If you guys haven't checked that out, you guys definitely should. Without question. I think that this Games for Change, I never actually really have watched the festival in the past. I checked it out though, and I really like what they do over there. So that was something pretty awesome and special for sure. And it was neat to have the Coalition have a representative over there. So that being said, couple of those things are some big things that are kind of going on in the Gears of War, community, some news that's happening, even though it's not like significant, like we're getting, an announcement of Gears 6 yet, but these are things that you can kind of take little snippets and pieces from, hearing from some of these, some of the folks over at the Coalition. I think it's really important that we definitely support that, and we definitely listen to what they have to say, even if it's not necessarily related to specifically like the future of Gears of War or how they're, trying to update the game and things of that nature. I still think it's very, very interesting. I think there's just other people that we need to put like a spotlight on in terms of like what they're the kind of content that they're creating. JXL says they're upgrading to Unreal Engine 5, so it'll be a while before Gears 6 arrives. I agree with you for sure. I think that Gears 6 is probably not going to be coming out for, it could be, my timeline has not changed for Gears 6. I believe that it's going to come out in 2024 or 2025. I thought that the Gears of War collection was going to come out this year, and then that would be kind of the bridge title between Gears 5 to Gears 6, and then Gears 6 would probably come out in 2024 or 2025, but it looks like, obviously I was wrong about the Gears of War collection coming out this year, so I think that the Gears of War collection, if it exists, is going to be coming out in 2023, and then we'll get Gears 6 in 2024 or 2025. The Coalition's taking their time and doing it right, and with Unreal Engine 5, I think they have the opportunity to make their best version of Gears of War that they've ever done up to this point. And obviously they've done the Gears Ultimate Edition, they've done Gears of War 4 and Gears 5, so I think Gears 6 has a lot of opportunity to be something very, very special. And top gamer sites predict 2024-25 at least as well. Yeah, I think it's probably going to be that. I mean, if we get it in 2023, that's awesome, right? It'd be awesome if we got Gear 6 in 2023, but I'd rather have a game that is completed, right? Even if that means they got to take their time with it, as long as it's completed, as long as it looks good, and they have all the things, the features that they want in it for us as the community. And if that means we got to wait for a Gears of War Battle Royale, a Gears of War Forge mode or map editor, the other things that we want to see added into Gear 6, I'm willing to wait for those things for sure, because I think if we get all of those things that the community kind of wants moving into Gear 6, the launch could be a smash success, which all I want is for Gear 6 to have the kind of success that Halo Infinite had when it came out, because Gears of War launches are always very, very bad. So I would really like to see that change with Gear 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch this video in terms of Gears 6. You know, as we're ramping up and getting more and more and more and more excited for a potential Gear 6, I want to talk about some of the things that we would like to see in Gear 6. Now, this video is coming to us from Hadou Kid. I reacted to one of his videos in the past, and I love this guy. I think he's got some really cool content. I want to talk, though, in this one, he made a video called 10 Things We Want in Gear 6. And I'm going to react to this video. Obviously, I think that he's got some things that definitely that a number of us want to see in Gear 6, and I want to kind of give my opinion on some of this stuff. And I think it's important, guys, like I said earlier, it's important that we put a spotlight on some of the other creators out there that are creating content in Gears of War, because they may be people that you don't even know about that are creating some pretty solid Gears of War content. And I would definitely want to use, my channel and what I do to kind of give these guys a voice as well, because you can hear from me all the time about things that I would like to see in Gears of War and, or in Gear 6, and want to see as far as the future goes of the Gears of War franchise. But it's important that we also give some of these other guys a voice as well. So let's go ahead and do that.
What's happening? As always, I am Hadou Kid, and today I want to talk to you about Gears of War. If you don't know, I'm a pretty big Gears of War fan. I've been playing Gears since the very first game, and there's something about Gears as a franchise, the gameplay, the mechanics, the characters we've grown to know and love, and just a lot of the nostalgic moments over the last decade or so. Something about how Gears has mixed in with that and just been a big part of, I think, my life, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys' lives as well. Now, I know the games have changed a lot over the years, and some of them have been considered more top tier classics versus others that didn't necessarily hit the mark. But as a Gears of War fan, I still find myself coming in and out of Gears 5, going into matches, linking up with a couple buddies and just playing as if it was back in 2006 or whenever the first game came out. And while I'm playing this game and getting a bunch of kills or thinking about rage quitting, I can't help but think about what the next game is going to be like. Now, I know they haven't said anything officially about Gears 6 yet, like what it's going to be about, when it's going to come out, or even if it's going to come out. But as I play through these matches and I think about all the things I've seen in Gears games and overall what the fans have talked about, it made me wonder, what are some things that could go into Gears 6 to really make it that game that really wraps it up, brings it home, and ultimately gives the fans the Gears experience they want. So without further ado, here are 10 things I think they should put in Gears 6 in order to make it that home run game that we've all been looking for as Gears of War fans.
Okay, before we even get into the video here, one of the things that he said was wrapping up Gears of War. And I disagree with that notion 100%. I think that Gears of War still has so many stories still to tell. I look at Gears as like a franchise that could continue creating games in the future, novels, comics, movies, all of these things, right? We obviously got confirmation by Rod Ferguson, who was the studio head at the Coalition at the time. He said that a Gears 6, a Gears 7, as well as a Gears of War movie were all confirmed. So I agree that Gears 6 is going to be kind of wrapping up this trilogy that the Coalition's been working on, but I don't agree that it's going to be the end of Gears of War's, like, from the perspective of the games. The only way that it's going to be the end of the games is if we have, as the community, allow that to happen in terms of, like, not supporting it. Like, if you create content, perfect, guys, continue creating content. If you are a streamer, keep streaming. But if you don't do those things, you got to be supporting your favorite content creators and your favorite streamers moving forward. And we have to, like, work together as almost like a unit and as a community to voice our opinion to the Coalition and such in a, like, civil way, obviously, not being toxic and things of that nature. If we do the things that we're supposed to do and the Coalition does their part to kind of update the game and all of those things, we're going to see this thing really move forward in a positive direction, and it won't be the end of Gears of War as we know it in terms of the games. I think that there's still so much left to be told. Now, when Gears 6 comes out, obviously I want it to be the best game ever, and so I want them to just support Gears 6, and I think, you know, as long as it's like a great game, could it be like a CSGO that you're, you know, it's just supported over the years and you just keep playing Gears 6? That'd be something that would be, I mean, I would love that, right? I think that there's still so much story left, though, to be told in the Gears of War universe that I feel like they're going to make more Gears of War games, especially because Microsoft's not going to buy the rights to Gears of War, create Coalition Gears to just make 3 titles. I feel like they're going to want to make a lot more in the future. But obviously they won't if Gears 6 doesn't do well from a commercial perspective, a community perspective. And so I get what he's saying about this, and I would love them to wrap up this trilogy in a way, but we've got to really push this thing and echo future games into existence.
So one thing that stands out when I think about the old Gears games versus the new ones is just the dark and gritty vibe and even look of them. Most of us who started at Gears 1 fell in love with just how dark the game felt, literally, and how it looked as well too, you know, between the lighting and just some of the development of the characters and the story elements. It really puts you in this feeling that you were really there with Delta Squad going through this just post-apocalyptic alien takeover world. And I know for Gears 5 at least, especially with the introduction of the open world system, it seems like they were trying to introduce more, you know, vibrance and ultimately showing off these great worlds and this great development. And don't get me wrong, Gears 5 graphically looks fantastic. It's amazing. But I think in the process, maybe even in the introduction of the open world aspects, you kind of lost a little bit of that feeling of despair tied in with just ultimately peril that the original games kind of helped create. And they had a good balance as well, you know, while they introduced good elements of gore and even just weight behind just a good headshot crunch or a chainsaw, you know, through a locust, and then just taking on waves and waves of these things. There was also a little bit of humor baked in there that helped balance it out. It gave it a really good mix of danger and concern for the characters while also kind of picking the right moments to lighten it up and really allow you to breathe in between big scenes and big moments. So I think that's just something to take into Gear 6. Again, I know we don't know what the story really is about, but if they're able to create this darker vibe, you know, I think back to when we first met the Krill or the Wretches or all the old iconic enemies we were first introduced to. Just even in the look, if you can create kind of that just darker with pockets of light, but just kind of, I don't know, dark, gritty vibe to the game, I think it really helps create an element that brings us in, kind of like how a good horror movie or a good thriller can suck you into the moment, but also still provide enough vibrance to allow you to enjoy everything going on around you.
Okay, so I want to talk about this. I agree with Hadouken on this one for sure. I think that Gears 5 was a little bit brighter, which It was kind of just a brighter title in general when we look at like from the maps to the even like the campaign and such. It was just overall more bright and kind of crisp. And I love from a graphical perspective, it looks great. But I agree that Gear 6 needs to be a little bit more of a darker tone for sure. Moving forward, a grittier tone, kind of like what the original games were like, where it was just darker, grittier. I thought Gears of War 4 was pretty dark and gritty, and maybe the Coalition wanted to move a little bit lighter with Gears 5. But I just think that, yes, darker and grittier really gives you that Gears of War vibe, that Gears of War feel, that hard mature rating that we had. We had Gears 5. That was a little bit of a brighter title. Now I think it's time to go back to that darker, grittier vibe. GXL says, lack of support is what killed Gears Esports. 4K viewers on Twitch for Summer Major a few weeks ago. Yeah, I think that it was lack of support, but I also think that it was I think that the community didn't support Gears Esports as much as it should have. So I do put it on certainly I put it on, the Coalition. When we had Gears of War 4, I felt like Gears Esports had a very good path forward. And then with Gears 5, it felt like the support wasn't as much there, not as much promotion, things of that nature. But I also think that the community didn't support it like we should have. Lots of people should have been like, hosting watch parties, things of that nature. And we didn't do that. And so I think that a lot, even though the Coalition didn't support it, I think that we as a community didn't cherish Gears Esports for what it was. But yes. Let's see here. We'll be lucky to see Gears 6 at all if the game isn't selling. Regardless of any confirmations, things will change. Why spend millions in development to create a game that's only going to get a loss? I don't think that, I look at, Gears 5 was a smash success for Xbox. It's come out that the numbers and all of that were very good for Gears 5. So I think that Gears 6 is going to sell. It's going to sell well, and I think that they're going to release it on Xbox. It'll go on Xbox Game Pass. So I think it's going to be a big success, commercial success in terms of from selling units and such. It's just the support long term. That's where we have to kind of see what happens, because Halo Infinite had an incredible launch and was doing insane numbers, and then it's kind of slowly teetered over time, especially from the HCS perspective. Halo Championship series is not doing so well right now, simply because they don't have enough there's too much lull, months before tournaments and stuff, and so that's been a big issue for sure. Gears 1 and 2 had the best atmosphere. I would say, yeah, Gears 1 to 3 I thought had the best atmospheres for sure. They had great atmosphere. I thought Gears of War 4 kind of went back to somewhat of that Gears of War 1 or 2 atmosphere. But yes, they had great atmospheres for sure. I'd like to kind of capture some of that at least in Gears 6 for sure.
Another thing I think about with some of the newer games is just a lot of the veteran or legacy characters kind of take a back seat to the new main cast, and it makes sense when you're trying to make them the stars of the show, but I think most fans at this point aren't very attached to the main group of JD, Dell, and Kate. I think there's not as much investment in them as there was in just Dom, Marcus, Cole, and Baird. And if you look at a lot of the requests that fans make for content and multiplayer especially, a lot of people are just essentially asking for skins and content for their favorite older characters. There aren't really a whole lot of requests for Kate and JD and Dell and just the new cast that didn't end up really hitting the mark with a lot of old and new fans, I don't think. So it'd be cool in Gears 6 to kind of see them bring back a lot of essential characters to the story at that point and tying them into the story somehow, giving them more epic moments so they're not just kind of like old and decrepit and useless at this point. Because even Marcus, he's fighting alongside them, but he's kind of in like a backseat mentor position where he's not doing a whole lot. And I don't know, I think it just doesn't really do him justice or the story justice as much as it could. So if you think about just the idea of doing more callback moments to old references in previous Gears games, it could be anything to a Cole Train speech that really, takes us back to when he spoke about the Queen in Gears 2, or something like as stupid as, who wants toast, and Marcus and Dom talking about I like it crispy, just terrible impressions, but you get the point. Like, just callbacks to moments that will really bring out the nostalgia in us, I think will be a really cool add to Gears 6. Another idea is just more generational moments. At this point, a lot of father-son, father-daughter soldiers exist. JD and Marcus are obviously father and son. So having a fight scene where they're really like just back-to-back going at it, fighting with each other would be really cool. At this point, Cole has a daughter apparently, so him and his daughter, kicking some Locust ass and giving out a woo at the end would just, I don't know, I think that'd be cool. Or even like a Carmine moment where you see Clayton just going off and dedicating, a beatdown to all of his siblings. I don't know, that seems like just those kind of moments that give you goosebumps that I think will really set off the last game as far as like a bringing it home kind of thing. And also just being able to give a lot of these characters closure in a way that's cool and not just killing them off necessarily. Seems like it'd be a cool thing to just see in the new Gears game.
I want to talk about that. She's talking about legacy characters, and I agree that, a lot of people just want to go back to like, when it comes to skins and stuff, they just want to basically have stuff on Marcus and, on the old like legacy characters. The issue to me isn't so much that people didn't like JD and don't like Kate Diaz. The issue is that the Coalition hasn't given them enough time to kind of adapt or kind of become a part of this thing. So like what I'm getting at is, so Gears of War 4, we played as JD, right? And at least for me personally, I was starting to get attached to JD by the end of Gears of War 4. The problem, though, was when we got to Gears 5, we moved on from JD to Kate Diaz. And yet I love Kate Diaz, but I feel like we needed to play as JD again. And the direction that the Coalition took JD Phoenix, I felt I didn't like it at all. They kind of almost made him seem like a douchebag in Gears 5, and then at the end you have to choose whether to kill him or not. And that's what I think the issue is. It's not so much that we're like, of course we love the legacy characters, but it's the way that they're treating the current characters that I think is the problem, and we're moving on from one character to the next way too quickly. We need to get to lose all these skins, marks, etc. It's not Gears. Add new characters, but take all the crap out. Gears ain't COD, making the game look like a cartoon. So I agree to an extent about the skins and such. I think Gears skins are awesome. Like, I think they're like the best when it comes to a third-person shooter title. I think they have the best skins. Like, they're awesome, and they fit Gears of War. Like, it's not like Fortnite where you have like all these ridiculous-looking, skins and such. It's different for Gears, and I think the skins on the guns and such are awesome. I want that to continue. Certainly, there's certain things I definitely want changed. The marks are a little bit, I agree with some of those things. I just want like really cool looking skins. They kind of got goofy with some of the stuff, like face paints and stuff like that. Not that I'm totally against it, but I think that they could, definitely get better at some of those things. I thought Gears of War 3 had the best skins ever. I'll never forget, like, trying to earn some of those skins and such was I loved it. I thought it was absolutely awesome. I want the grittiness, darkness of OG Gears. I do not need a neon Gnasher that can be seen from spawn. Put in for kids. Gears is 18 plus, so it should reflect that, and it doesn't. Even executions look childish. I don't think that Gears is really meant for kids. I mean, when we think about it, like, bodies and limbs are like being blown off. So like, I agree to an extent with some of the skins and some of like the face paints and things of that nature, but Gears is still pretty graphic for sure. This one is actually probably one of the more graphic Gears of War titles, just in terms of, you shoot someone point blank with a Gnasher, I mean, their entire body explodes. You know, it's you don't really get that in a lot of video games. So I don't think it's necessarily meant for kids. There's definitely certain things that they're trying to kind of tone down a little bit. What I liked was why Gears of War 3 was my favorite Gears ever made was because of the skill gap. So like it was very easy to play, but very hard to master. And so anyone could kind of pick up the controller and start playing Gears of War 3. And also, even though it was still that hard like mature rating, I still felt like it wasn't so much like you shoot someone point blank and like every limb comes off or they explode like a bubble or something. It just was, this one is a little bit too much of that, I feel, and sometimes the blood and such looks a little bit over the top.
Old characters. I think one thing that Gears can really take advantage of at this point is a lot of the old comic book lore and content. As far as DLC goes, there's so much that they haven't talked about yet that's really integral to how we got to this point. I think Gears 5 did a good job at helping fill in the blanks for some of the information that we didn't necessarily maybe get out of Gears 2 being in the laboratory and understanding how, you know, the Queen leaks back to the Locusts and how that all kind of leads into E-Day and all that stuff. I think Gears 5 definitely did a good job at incorporating that information into the games. And there's just so much other cool stuff that you could do DLC for, like Marcus when he was a young soldier fighting alongside, you know, Carlos Santiago, or even, you know, when they met Ty. Ty was apparently like a badass in the jungle, and obviously they ended up recruiting him for the COG, but just tying in all these moments to these characters that we know and love, you could have a whole bunch of content, I feel, based off of that. And it just seems like something that in Gear 6 in a flashback maybe, or even just like a side content kind of thing, it'd be cool to include and just help educate people on the real lore of some of the characters we know and love. Now that some of the campaign ones are out the way, we hop into the multiplayer, and I think this is where the bulk of the Gears fans really spend most of their time. So the first one that comes to mind, and this is really across the gaming industry at this point, is just better quality of the game at launch. And I don't mean that in a negative, just attacking way. I just think, you know, a lot of us understand the gaming industry is very fast paced at this point, especially with how much gaming blew up in the past couple years. So, you know, timelines are being crunched down and games are expected to be as good, if not better, than what they were before, and look better and perform better. So understanding all that, just there's a lot of games now at this point that when they launch, they're essentially unplayable for the first week or first couple weeks, and you know, it's expected to have a couple of bugs. But Gears 5, for example, I just think back to how hard that launch was and how many people probably dropped off because they really couldn't even get into the game and enjoy it. I think a lot of Halo players are seeing the same thing with Halo Infinite, obviously to a smaller degree, but this idea that the game will drop and we'll kind of fix it as we go along, I think a lot of players are okay with that, just as long as it's not major fixes that don't even allow us to connect to matches or get kills that we rightfully earned. And when I think back to Gears 5 and how the beta ran, it was actually very difficult to play the beta. You kind of stuck through it because you wanted the unlockables, but the connectivity was almost impossible sometimes. And you know, it's a beta, so you don't really take it that to heart. But the game came out, I think, within the next few months of the beta, which again makes you think you need more time to essentially work out all these bugs and all these issues. So for Gears 6, maybe just spanning that out a little more, allowing the feedback to kind of get baked into the game so that you can really iron out a lot of these things and fine tune them before the initial drop. That way you maintain a lot of your player base after just the first month or first few weeks. You know, I think it's good, obviously, to have a lot of people playing when the game first comes out. That's a great statistic to have. But I think a sign of a good game is not just how many initial players log in, but how many players you can keep lasting over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you know, throughout the life cycle of the game.
So I want to talk about that. Obviously, what he's talking about in terms of the multiplayer, having it, really making sure that the coalition doesn't have like a shaky launch with Gear 6, I think is very important as well. We have had over the course of time very shaky launches, to take it lightly, with Gears of War. Usually the launches are very, very bad, just for Gears in general. That needs to change with Gear 6 for sure if we want this to be a sustainable thing moving forward. So, having betas and all of those things are going to be very, very integral and important for the coalition when it comes to Gear 6. It's cartoon violence. Look at Gears 1, Chunked Enemy. It was more gruesome. I agree. I definitely agree with that. I think that it was definitely more gruesome in those and more gritty in terms of like the violence and such that they had. It does feel a little bit more cartoony in Gears 5 for sure. Gears of War 4, I thought was a pretty good balance, but it kind of went to another level in Gears 5. So yeah, I agree with that.
Can you keep really engaged throughout? On that same note, I think matchmaking is another thing that a lot of us have kind of struggled or had issues with, at least in Gears 5. Teams can vary between the highest level 30s, 40s, 50s prestige and people who literally just picked up the game. And I'm not exactly sure how that all works out. I couldn't tell you the background stuff that helps match up people in that sense, but you can imagine in a match where the skill levels aren't lining up, that some games can be pretty one-sided and ultimately people will lose interest in kind of hopping into a party. Let's say if you're not in a team full of friends or people you could be in a game with some random people and essentially just they wipe the floor with you, and nobody really wants to do that on a consistent basis. Or worse, you end up in a lobby that puts you halfway across the world, which puts your ping in the hundreds or the thousands, and you really can't even literally play the game. So just more consistency in how your match made, with local people or even with just skill levels. I don't know exactly how to get that, but just for the multiplayer purpose of that, just making it more fair so that you're playing against people in your skill set, I think will do a lot for the player base as far as keeping people around and keeping people interested.
Okay, so I think I agree that, they need to have a ranked system at launch. That ranked system needs to, put people like, skill-based matchmaking, all of that stuff needs to be implemented day one with Gear 6 for sure. And I think that a lot of these things that he's talking about are definitely things that could be happening with Gear 6 and what the coalition's doing right now behind the scenes. They're making a lot of these, when we think about the changes that they're making, and they're taking their time right now. We haven't even got an announcement of Gear 6 yet. Even though we know it's coming, it's just something that they're taking their time with. I think that a lot of these things are making sure that they want to have a really good launch. They want to have all of this like content and things of that nature that are there day one, so that there's a proper place where the pro players can go. Esports scene is going to be set up, have everything like in a way where it just makes sense. And sure, guys, there's going to be issues at launch. There always is with any game. It doesn't matter what game it is. There will be issues, but the idea is like minimizing those issues. And when there are issues that come up, making sure that they're properly handling it is really what they have to do. And us as a community, we've got to be positive when this game comes out. Cannot just be giving the coalition crazy backlash, what we have, and being very toxic what has been the standard or the norm of the Gears community. And at times it's warranted, but I just think that we've got to be more positive with the coalition for sure moving forward.
Just the content, I think, on a weekly basis or seasonally isn't just what a lot of people are really interested in. Some of it's kind of cringy, some of the emotes are just kind of like, it's not something that people are willing to really pay money for if that's what the expectation is. And even in a match, I remember first turning on the game, and at the end you kind of see the person standing there and they're just like, hello. Like, what the heck was that? Or even just, I don't know, some of it's a little cringy, and a lot of it isn't worth either spending money on or really, working to grind and earn. So just thinking about the kind of content people would really be willing to put hours into earning and grinding for, and then making it unique as well. A lot of character skins, especially the Carmines, are just different colors or slight variations. And we're not saying that you have to spend hours and days and weeks on specific content just to say you spent more time, but just when you look at something and you think, well, do I really need this, or do I want this because it looks almost identical to this other armor? It doesn't really make you want to play longer. It doesn't really want to make you grind any more than you already are, just for this slight variation of a skin that you probably didn't even want in the first place. And then as far as how often content gets out, I don't know if there's a sweet spot for that, but one thing I think all Gears fans can agree on is that just without great content up front and at a cadence that kind of drip feeds it to the fans, I don't think you're going to keep a lot of people around. I feel like there's a fear that if you drop too much great content all at once up front, people are going to get bored and not want to play the game or not want to grind for it. But I don't think that's true. Nobody really has a problem with good content. And then obviously if they enjoy the game, part of it is playing for the content, but the other part is enjoying having the content and essentially being able to show it off in match after match after match. So people are going to stick around if they like the game. You don't have to worry about drip feeding kind of filler content in between weeks or seasons. Essentially if you give us a lot of cool stuff up front, especially just even stuff that is way cooler than what it was in the previous games, then I think you'll keep a lot of people around longer and just ultimately make people want to grind a little more.
Okay, so I want to talk about this. I got a couple of things to talk about here. In terms of when it comes to like items and things that you're kind of grinding for in the game, I truly believe that the most important thing that they've got to do between Gears 5 to Gears 6 is making there be a reason to re-up, a reason to grind. I've always said this, guys, that no matter what the game is, it's better to have earnable items than payable items, because when you have to earn something, you're going to go back over and over again to earn it and grind for it. I'm going to give you two examples, one being Halo, the other being Call of Duty. So in Halo, think of it like this. In Halo, let's go back to Halo Reach. So in Halo Reach, you had to really grind to get some of the things that you wanted in that title. I'll give you an example. Inheritor, which was the top rank in Halo Reach, you got a really cool suit, like of armor on your character. It was like a skull like mask, and it was really an awesome looking suit that you got for getting or achieving Inheritor in Halo Reach. And so lots of people were grinding really hard for it. And I think that having those earnable items over the payable items keeps people going back and back over and over again to try to get there. Because you feel like you really earn something when you do it. But what's the point of re-upping in Gears 5? Gears 5, it was like, I never re-upped in Gears 5. And the reason being was because there wasn't really a structure to what I was going to get if I did re-up. Was there anything really cool outside of a little, I was on re-up 1 and you would see that in the lobbies and stuff. I always saw it like with Gears of War 3. I loved their re-up system because they had icons, they had like emblems and things like that you could earn, or as you're re-upping and such. There were things to consistently gave you reason to re-up, and I just felt like that kind of was lost with Gears 5. The other thing I'm going to talk about is Call of Duty. Call of Duty, guys, Modern Warfare 2, for example, had some absolutely awesome unlockable items at the time. For its time, they were awesome. And like to get to the 10th Prestige was a huge deal. Getting to 10th Prestige and getting the 10th Prestige medallion was a massive thing that you had to earn. You couldn't just wasn't something that you could just buy. Now there were people, it was so popular that people would go into modded lobbies and they would, try to, hack their way to get to 10th prestige and get the medallion, get everything. And it became a very popular thing in MW2 because because people like, it was so grindy. And I just think that we got to get back to that here with Gear 6 is to have like stuff that you're earning. It doesn't have to be so grindy like Halo reaches getting to inheritor rank, but it's got to be grindy, in my opinion, to really get the things that you want in place and get the things that you want to earn. I just think that there's so much stuff that you can just purchase now that kind of almost gives you this option whether to grind or not. And I just think that having earnable items over payable items is massive. To be honest, re-ups don't matter. Just make level 100 mean something. No XP boost. Level 100 should feel like you earned it, like on Gears 2. When I saw wings, when you saw the wings, yeah, I agree. Like, for sure, man. Like, I think that when you got to that rank 100 or that re-up 10 or whatever it is, like it needs to be cool. It needs to be like a prestigious thing on the leaderboard. It gets other people to want to get to that point. And it's like, it gives you that clout, that ordeal inside of the lobbies. The re-ups though, yes, I agree. Like re-ups, I think if they're done properly, like in Gears of War 3, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was perfect. Gears of War 4, I thought it was okay. Gears 5, I don't like it at all. So that definitely needs to change.
Talked about or even potentially controversial. It has to do with just better rewards and leveling and just the store system. It kind of ties in with the content aspect of things, but with the way the industry's kind of moving, obviously I've been gaming for a while, so I'm used to the game drops and then, you put in hours and hours and hours and essentially you get, some of those hard to get skins like, in Halo it'd be like you do this, get a samurai helmet or something like that, or just stuff that showed that like an achievement, you really had to earn that stuff. And I know that's not to knock the new system of things because it offers a lot of exclusive as well in a different way. I know microtransactions are pretty much here to stay at this point, but I think Gears 5 did a great job over its couple of years in improving the system in a way that seemed to work within both worlds. I think you still can introduce a system that allows you to grind and work for certain content while also having other content that essentially you charge real money for, and that you still make a profit off of some exclusive content that you really only have for a limited time in a store. The problem with that, as far as the way the current system works, is that you have iron, which you pay real money for in order to have that digital currency, versus coins, which if you just keep playing the game, you kind of earn the coins. And the way the current system works is when something comes out in the store, it costs iron, but if you wait a week, it costs coins. So essentially, if you can just stick it out for a week and grind to get enough coins, you don't really have to ever pay any real money. It kind of defeats the purpose of the iron, besides having it as an option, which I get it. If somebody's going to buy it to have it now, then obviously why would you miss out on that money? It makes sense. But I think for Gear 6, there should be more content that's more difficult to get, that kind of shows that, you earned this achievement or you really had to work and grind to get this thing without the option of putting it on the store later. There were a couple instances in Gears 5 where certain executions or certain character skins were essentially reintroduced into the store after having been in the tour of duty, and a lot of people didn't really take well to that, because why would we spend time grinding for it if you're just going to charge money so that somebody else can buy it later? Kind of defeats the purpose of putting multiple hours into the game. Whereas when you look back at Gears 3, for example, Gears 3, as you leveled up, you just got more content. And so like if you were level 100, you had all the characters, you had all of the different variations of anything that could be introduced. And then with weapon skins, depending on how you did with a certain weapon, this is in Call of Duty also, just depending on how you do with a certain weapon, how many kills you get or whatever, that essentially drives the skins you're able to get with that. So it's more skill based and kind of, gives people more of a sense of pride that they're really earning and working towards just the things they unlock and can kind of show off. Now I know the tour duty in a way is kind of essentially that progression system that gets you different levels of content, but sometimes it seems just like this challenge system introduces more arbitrary challenges, like killing a pouncer and escape, or I don't know, doing something in a mode that people just, when you want to play multiplayer, like if I want to say I got 1,000 kills with a long shot and now I have a diamond crystal clear emotion long shot or something, that seems to be a lot more important than go do this thing for a star and then pay to have more stars to get it faster. Again, it defeats the pride and the real skill level involved in having to get content. And I think just reintroducing that, at least at some level, and keeping that content exclusive will really keep especially a lot of veteran Gears players.
I want to talk about this. I agree, like, with a lot of stuff that he's talking about here. Like, he's talking kind of about the leveling system and all of that, and we already kind of talked about this. I think that you've got to have, at launch, you have to have a path forward. Like I remember with Gears 5, they were adding re-ups as we went, and they kept on adding more and more re-ups, but they weren't giving us content really with it. They weren't giving us like reason to do it. And so it just gets back to having reason, having purpose, and earnable items versus payable items. That's the name of the game, in my opinion, when we move into Gears 6. You've got to have earnable items. Earnable, like when you re-up, there's a reason for it. He brought up Gears 3, and that's exactly the same thing I feel. I feel the exact same way he does. Gears 3 did a perfect job at doing this. Every time that you would re-up, you would get new things, and there were always new things that you could be working for and such, whether you wanted to do it in horde mode, whether you wanted to do it in multiplayer, however you wanted to do it, you could achieve those things and kind of go at it at your own pace. So yeah, for sure. Chloe TV says hello. Hey, what's going on? Appreciate you for being here for sure. JXL says no one cares what level you are now. It's too easy. Yeah, I think that the XP boost, like there's a lot of XP boosts and such. So yeah, it's become a pretty easy way to re-up and such. And it kind of gives, that's why they kept on adding more and more re-ups and such. And that's why I didn't re-up, because they weren't giving me a reason to re-up, like in Call of Duty, trying to get to the 10th prestige and get the 10th prestige medallion, or Halo Reach, getting up to Inheritor. Those were reasons to grind and really grind the game. We don't get that here with Gears 5. We had it somewhat in Gears of War 4. We had it, of course, in Gears of War 3, which is probably that should be like the standard that they look at in terms of where they go with Gears 6, in terms of the leveling system, the ranking system, because we need a ranked play immediately, day one, with launch, and skill-based matchmaking, all of those things have to be implemented day one.
Got a lot of pride. I like to show off. Yeah, I did this, that, and the third, and it goes a long way when you can walk around saying I did this and I have this, and somebody can't just buy it. So for Gears 6, just having some kind of experience-based unlockable progression system, I think will really be a big improvement and a nice way to reintroduce elements of the original Gears stuff while still having certain things only available on the store for a limited time. I think you can have the best of both worlds. If you've been playing Gears over the years, you know that there have been a lot of multiplayer modes that have come and go and that have evolved. Some that come to mind are, original Gears started with Warzone, Execution, Assassination, which essentially just became Guardian, and Annex. And, a lot of those really all of those I think are pretty non-existent at this point, unless you bring back Execution. And then other ones that kind of came and went, like Submission, and Wingman is a popular one. Then you have other ones like Arms Race, and the list goes on and on. I think the biggest thing is that I think Gear 6 should start with a strong core of multiplayer games that really the fans want and that they play the most. Some that stand out are Team Deathmatch, King of the Hill, in general, survey and poll the fans. Make sure you know which modes they truly, really want. And then keep the playlist. I think that's a good format of having the playlist style that matches objective-based game types with more kill-based ones, so on and so forth. But just make sure that the focus is on modes that are going to be often played and are really enjoyed. This may be more of a personal take, but I play a lot more objective-based ones. Like King of the Hill is my preference, but unfortunately, when I go into that playlist, half the time I get stuck in game modes like Capture the Flag or Gridiron or Guardian when I really don't have any interest in playing those. Sometimes I might be in the mood for a certain kind of game type, depending on just what kind of mood I'm in. But 9 times out of 10, I feel like I get forced into game modes in a playlist that I just really don't want to play. And, somehow even if you can build that into like how it predicts which ones come up next in the voting process, you can essentially, I feel like, tie it in a way that gives the more preferred or the more often played ones more often, versus forcing us to go into like a Capture the Flag or a Gridiron and everybody's just gonna leave anyway, and then you have to play against bots. So if Gears 6 can kind of implement that structure, a strong core structure of multiplayer modes, I think that's a good setup to keep people engaged and just interested, at least in the mainline multiplayer modes. Now, even though there's a lot of game modes that have existed over the years that some have made it into new games, it would be cool to see maybe a new game mode or maybe a revised game mode. And I guess I'm hinting at this point something like, I don't know, just in my opinion, if you brought back something like Beast Mode, I think that would be really cool. And Beast Mode was in Gears 3. It was essentially a mode where there were some people on the COG team and some people actually played as the Locust characters, and you would go head to head. And I don't know, it was a cool, innovative concept, and I thought it was a lot of fun. And especially at this point, when you have so many different enemies between the mainline Gears universe of the first 3 games and even the newer enemies that have emerged in the last few games, you can do a lot with that. And I mean, how cool would it be to be able to play as a Brumak or as a Berserker? I think back to Gears 2 and the last level where you're on the Brumak and you're just mowing down locusts, and obviously you can't just be broken with it, but to have like that power again in like multiplayer and have your friends trying to fight you off, it just seems like it was a really cool concept that I think you could revise and bring it back. This may be one that not all fans agree with, but I don't know. I just feel like it'd be a cool thing to reintroduce to kind of bring in something new to the newer Gears games while also kind of calling back some of the older game modes and like in Gears 3 that some of us kind of really were tied to back in the day. Kind of a random thought, but just something, even if you had like a Dead by Daylight type vibe where you were General Rom and you had a special ability where you could control the krill at certain areas. And I don't know, just thinking outside the box to do little things like that give you some exclusive Locust abilities but put you head to head with your friends to make some real fun moments.
And you know what, guys? I agree with what he's saying here. I mean, a couple of things. Number one, I think that they need to, that being the coalition, need to narrow down the playlist to what the community wants. Okay, so for me personally, I like playing free-for-all, but my 2 favorite game modes are usually team-based objective game modes. I love escalation and execution. Those are the 2. So I'll do free-for-all every once in a while, but those are the 2 primary ones that I really like to play. Now everyone has different ones that they like. Some people like King of the Hill, Team Deathmatch. I mean, there's a number of them, but I think if you get like a core amount and then you have like a ranked playlist, then you have like for the casual people who just like to play, and like, just fry other teams or go at it free for all. You have those as playlists as well. Sometimes I think if you have too much, it just spreads the community out in like a major way. And so I think definitely kind of honing it down, narrowing down the number of game modes, I think is very, very important. Number two, a game mode like Beast Mode, I think would be absolutely awesome to bring back. I've said this a ton of times on the YouTube channel, guys. You guys can check out all of my Gears of War content there, but Beast Mode would be awesome to bring back. I'd also like them to make another game mode. Like something that's just new, like, because in Gears of War 4 we got Escalation, and I thought Escalation was like the best new game mode I had played in a long time. So I'm always down for them to try different game modes or to bring out like a new game mode. I just don't want them to kind of spread themselves too thin where it's like, you know, they're working on just a number of different new game modes. I'd rather them just kind of work on one game mode that they think is, you know, well received in the coalition, and then kind of test it out to the general public and such, see what the community thinks about it. The special events should return as well. 2v2 Nashers shouldn't be a fixed playlist. They should appear monthly with added exclusive rewards that can't be earned outside of that game mode. It's an interesting thought. I think 2v2 Nashers would be really cool. I think they could come up with some pretty cool ideas for sure. To have like, yeah, somewhat of like special events or, you know, monthly events that bring you back just for those events and such, just because they're going to be different. And yeah, I love that concept. I think it could be something really special in Gear 6 for sure.
Escape didn't hit home for some people. I know a lot of people who played the heck out of Escape and they leveled up a lot and it was great for them. For me personally, I didn't really feel like Escape was the mode for me. And it seemed like a lot of the challenges and just a lot of times it was kind of forced on us. So I think the focus should just be between all game modes, making sure it's what the fans want, especially in this game if it's supposed to be the last game in the series, which we still have to wait and see. But just a focus on what the fans kind of want in that aspect, even doing some of that research up front before the game comes out, which I'm sure it's probably in development right now, I think will go a long way when we finally get to the game. The last thing that I think will really make Gear 6 pop is having just good, memorable multiplayer maps. Now, Gears has had a lot of iconic maps throughout its history. Places like Canals, Blood Drive, Gridlock, just to name a few. Some people could argue that they're kind of tired of them, and they've been in every Gears game since 1, 2, 3, so, you know, it makes sense. But just, I think having access to those maps, at least in the beginning, would be just nice in order to start off with maps that we like, to have a bigger variety. You know, in Gears 5, I think the problem was there were only a handful of maps, new maps that we had, and so you felt like you were pretty much playing the same match every other match. And if you were to just include some of these older maps that you're eventually going to roll out anyway, earlier into Gears 6, I think it would just give, in a weird way, a fresher play to how things are going on. At least give us breathing room between, you know, if we're playing in a new Gear 6 map, to kind of have a couple of other maps and cleanse our palette before we jump back into the same game and the same game type and do that over and over and over again. So just the big thing is to poll the fans, you know, survey what maps are really favorites. And I know it's hard to get a sometimes consistent take on that, because I know everybody kind of has their own favorite maps and moments that happen in each map. But just take a handful of them, you know, look at some. I think Raven Down, funny enough, I've seen as a really requested map that, interestingly enough, didn't get brought into Gears 5. But that's one that, you know, maybe you introduce into Gears 6. On top of, like, the other ones, like, you know, Mansion, or just some older ones that maybe weren't in Gears 5, and then older ones that are in Gears 5 that are loved, and you don't really have to do a lot to them. I know there's always a want to revise over time, you know, what these maps look like as things happened in the world, and that'd be a good touch, but just more than anything, having the maps available, I think, is the important part. And as far as new maps go, kind of follow similar templates, maybe not copy paste, but just take from what works in these other maps. Canals, for example, is pretty straightforward. You start on both sides. You get the power weapon sniper in each side. You got one in the middle, and then you can play the sides. Even Gridlock, you start off, you know, you got the power weapon on one side, power weapon on the right. You can choose which way you want to divide. Just stick to something simple and for example, Pahanu, I think that's how you pronounce it. That map for me didn't really hit home, and a lot of people I play with didn't enjoy it that much. It's visually stunning, of course, but it just, I don't know, it didn't really work. Too big, just a lot of layers and levels that didn't really feel like they were fun in a match. So just keeping the maps simple, straightforward, and just playing off of what worked in some of the iconic ones, as well as tying that back into the moments in campaign, of course. You know, in the mansion, we had just the big fight inside as we were kind of learning more about the history with Marcus and his dad and stuff. So being able to play off of some of these iconic epic moments in the campaign and then bringing that map into multiplayer, I think really works in tandem to help build more iconic moments and just ultimately make us as the players feel more connected to what's going on when we're playing in that map.
And I agree. So we're going to stop it there. When it comes to the maps, I mean, bringing in like some of the older maps that are classic that everybody loves is good for sure. But I also think that you got to come up with some new game modes, or I should say some new maps that are going to be from this upcoming title, Gear 6. You know, like we were talking about, we'd love to see this be a little more gritty, a little bit more dark. And so hopefully some of those maps from the campaign can translate over to the multiplayer, and it can be something absolutely special in a massive way. If you guys haven't, definitely check out Hadouken. I think that he creates some pretty cool content. So those are the things that we would like to see, guys, and what we want in Gears 6. What are some of the things that you guys want to see? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Gears 6 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. But we're going to talk about Gears of War's collection. So this is going to be coming to us from Ahmad Mansour of Xputer. Gears of War collection doesn't exist, suggests Industry Insider. So Halo the Master Chief Collection was a huge success for Microsoft and Xbox Game Studios when it launched in 2014. It has sold more than 8 million copies and got further enhancements in 2019 and 2020. Players love this compilation of the first 4 games a lot, and the reception speaks for itself. After this success, Microsoft rightfully thought that some other popular series could benefit from this treatment. Rumors started circulating that another Xbox Game Studio franchise was getting the Halo Master Chief Collection-like bundle. Gears of War was at the center of this rumor mill due to a report from an accredited journalist, Nick Baker, who obviously brought that up. However, there was a individual, his name was Skylar Jeffers. He tweeted out saying, where did he say this? His article makes it seem like he doesn't know much about what the Coalition will be showing on Sunday, and this was obviously Xbox Game Showcase. Jez Gordon would love some elaboration confirmation if possible. Thank you, buddy. And Jez tweeted back to him saying, I don't think a Gears collection exists. So, yes, that is a pretty, that was a massive point in time, guys, where people were very much so upset when they heard that it could be something that's not even happening. So what Jez has said about the Gears of War collection is opposite to the popular rumors. Many agreed with what Nick Baker originally said back in May about a new Xbox Game Studios collection arriving. However, Jez Gordon's comment has put all of this into doubt. Even though the existence of the Gears of War collection is now in doubt, Microsoft is still probably making a Halo the Master Chief Collection-esque collection. Jez Gordon didn't contradict this point either, and it makes a lot of sense. However, the question now is what this collection will be if not Gears of War. Lots of people are saying it's maybe Fable, saying it's maybe, something else, maybe a Forza collection. It should be Gears of War for sure. Fable would maybe be the other one that makes some sense. Can't really see Forza being the one, but I personally think that Gears of War is one of Microsoft's biggest franchises, so why would they not do a Gears of War collection? But I still think that the Gears of War collection is happening. It just, may be coming next year. So Gears of War is one of the most beloved Xbox Game Studios franchises of all time, and seeing it return would have been nice. However, that might not be happening now, as Jez Gordon has told us. We will have to wait, obviously, what's going to happen in the future. Yeah, we're gonna definitely have to wait. There's no doubt about it. I think that there's obviously good opportunity, guys, for a Gears of War collection to still happen. It may not happen. It's not happening this year, that's for sure. But could it be happening next year? I absolutely think there's a possibility to it. And I think that they should do a Gears of War collection, a Fable collection, and maybe even a Forza collection as well. I think they should maybe do all of those things. It's definitely something that should potentially happen in the future. But with that being said, guys, what do you think? Do you think that the Gears of War collection is going to be something that comes out next year? Do you think it's not going to come out at all? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And for more Gears of War collection content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. I want to say thank you so much, as always, for joining me for this episode of the Gears Cast. Guys, you can connect with me in a multitude of ways, whether that's on social media, whether it's on YouTube, where you can see all of my new YouTube content. We have new Gears of War content that goes up every single day. I appreciate each and every one of you for being, following the Twitch channel. We have surpassed 2.6K here on Twitch. We are very close to 6,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I appreciate all of you for being a part of this journey so far. We have so much that we still have to get to, guys, so much excitement. Like I said, I appreciate all of you for joining me for this episode of the Gears Cast. If you guys could leave a thumbs up, obviously that helps out the YouTube channel in a massive way. You guys can follow the Twitch channel. That helps out in a huge way. And if you guys subscribe on Twitch, guys, you guys get custom emoticons and emojis, things of that nature. Thank you so much for joining the Gears of War community and such. Very excited for the future. Stay positive, guys. Just keep grinding. And as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.